Corporate headshots, how to plan it, shoot it, and edit it is our topic today on Luminar Coffee Break, and it begins now. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us for this. Now, I'm going to go through a couple examples of how to plan for a headshot, and then how to go, of course, how to actually photograph it, and then how to edit it. Originally, I wanted to do this live for you, which I'll probably do next week, where we can go on location and actually show you my setup. But I have a little secret trick I want to show you that helps me plan this, so I know exactly what I'm getting into when I get there. All right? So let me just show you my screen real quick. These right here are traditional corporate headshots. All right? And they're going to be used for various things. Now, here's how I go about some of my planning. All right? I have to ask, what's the end result? What are they going to use these images for? Are they going to put it on a business card? Are they going to put it on a billboard? Are they going to make little motivational quotes with those pictures in it? What do they need? Once they tell me what they're going to be using the images for, then I plan accordingly. If I want it to be a one and done, photograph it, get it out the door, then I'm going to make sure it's perfect in camera. And this is what we did here. So this shoot here is for a good friend of mine who owns a mortgage company. Now, I had the ability to photograph this whole group of people several different ways. So I kind of got the best of all worlds. So here is this image right here, for example. And you can see it's an NEF down here. So this is straight out of camera. So this sort of looked like straight out of camera. Yes, my cropping wasn't the greatest. Again, it was like the third shot that we did. This was the final. Now, to edit that was real simple. I mean, here it is again over here. Yep, it's an NEF. So here's the very first shoot of the session. So that was the very first shoot, or the very first shot that I took. Look how the lighting and everything is accurate. And that's because I used a meter. And I'll go through that when we start talking about the actual setup of the shoot. So this style of a shoot is one and done. I can photograph it, crop it, send it off to them, minor edits, I'm out of there, I'm finished. All right? So that's when you, like I said, come up with your own backdrops and you have an idea. But for this particular shoot, they did have other reasons to use these images. All right? So here's a good example right here. So they wanted to put these images on something like this, all right, to where there's the name of the company, and then it's rendering right here for a moment. And then, of course, each employee brought out a quote. So each employee had a quote, and then we put the quote here on this black card, all right? And then we also used the black card. Let me get out of this. We also used this black card as their actual business card. So I'll show you how we did that. Go to all photos. So in order to do this, notice that wasn't shot on that backdrop that I did. It was shot on this black backdrop. And the device that I was using, called a high key, I just switched it around. It had white on one side, black on the other. And now we photographed them on black. So all I had to do was come in, edit the photo, of course, and then drop in their logo. So let's see if I have it at the very bottom, maybe. Almost there. Sorry for breezing through this. Yeah, it has to be at the bottom. One moment. Oh, here we go. All right. So at the very bottom of the screen, each one of them, each of their employees, and these who are the owners, they have their own quotes, and we did this for them. So that's what they wanted when customers first walked into their business. They saw these. I think they were something like I want to say, let's see if it was a 4x3, maybe an 8x12 gator back foam. So it stood up nice and neat in the corner of the room, or in the corner on the desk. And then they liked it so much, let's see if I have it on the bottom, that we made business cards out of them. Let me see if I can get those up here. Yeah. Well, so we made business cards out of those itself. Now, like I said, this group, I had the opportunity to photograph them on a white background, on a black background, and then on this green background. Now, we did this because, again, we weren't quite sure all the uses they wanted to use for these. So in here, I know they were having a billboard made, so we wanted to have a 3/4 length shot. So not just the headshot, the head and shoulders, but we wanted something where it looks like she's standing, which she is, and then we could put that into any one of our designs. Shooting it on green, and back then this was 2009, shooting it on green gave you that chroma green background to where it was supposed to be, keyword I just said, supposed to be real easy to click on the green, it erases everything, and she looks beautiful. The problem is, if you light it a little bit too much, that green spills onto the subject, and now you have a green color cast. So gray and white has become the new chroma green, chroma green screen. So gray and white now are typically the ones you will use if you want to extract a person from the background. All right. So with that being said, these I wasn't too happy with, photographing on the green, because again, this isn't one and done. It meant I had more work to do. Those first ones you saw, I was able to give that to them right as soon as we ended the photo shoot. They had those images immediately. These took about a week to extract. Look at this. I'll use this one as an example. And look, you're not always going to get it perfect. Look how the hair starts to look. Now, yes, since 29, what was that? 10, 11, 12, 13 years ago, software has changed. And I can't wait for Luminar, when it comes out with a portrait background removal. I can't wait for that to appear. That'll make this so much easier. But again, back in 2009, this was the best we could work with. So to fake it, if I put this on black, which you saw, right, it came out really good. So by extracting the background and then putting her on black, let me get to the bottom. You know what? I should have organized all these better for you. By putting them on black like this afterwards, it's no problem. It will work it. So while I was photographing, I realized, you know what? Why am I killing myself on that chroma green? Why not just photograph them in black? This way, I don't have to extract them from the background, and I can just do this with it. So that's, like I said, your planning. But once again, this particular shoot, it was designed for two reasons. One, to give them a discount on the actual photo shoot if I could use their images for teaching purposes. And two, if I could bring my interns along and teach my interns how to do these photo shoots ahead of time. And it's so much cheaper than paying for models. Plus, they got the benefits of it because they used all of these for their work, and the interns got to learn how to photograph on green, black, and gray. Now, notice I have him holding what's called a gray card. All right. So this gray card right here, or white balance, what that's going to do for us, and you've seen me do this many a times before, instead of me taking his eye, and I use his eye like this, instead of me using a reference for the white point on his eye, now we actually have a good gray point here. So if I come over here to edit, and let's go down to, or come up to the development tool. I'm going to pick my camera profile, which portrait works out good. And now I'm going to come down to color. And here it is. I'm going to click this eyedropper. And notice that right there, look at it, 186, 185, 186. That's neutral gray right there. So that's giving me a neutral gray setting, where all the colors are even coming around. So I'm going to just hover the eyedropper around till I get it very, very close. I mean, that's fine right there. I click on it. And now that just set the white balance for me. And look what that did. All right. Let's do before and after, if it'll show it. And before, after. Okay, so the lights I was using were already color balanced, so that worked out good. This right here just gave me the confidence that the light did cast a proper white balance onto the subject. So that's why these gray colors are very important. All right, so that's how, like I said, we did this shoot. We planned it. What do they want me to use it for? What do they want to use the images for? Then you plan for it. Now, to keep them under control, especially for a long day like this, yes, we let them do funny things. I think you saw that earlier, where whenever women get together, I don't know why, they like to do the Charlie's Angels. Yeah, let me do this to make it easier. Yeah, for whatever reason, they do like the Charlie's Angel look. Let's see if I brought it up here. Anyways, so what I was getting at, I got them to laugh, have fun, and do different things. So I don't make it too serious for them. And again, I knew these people. If I didn't know them, I'd have to feel them out to make sure they were in a happy mood or a fun mood. All right? So let's just real quick do an edit here. I'm going to click on a preset. And I already did one ahead of time. Notice his little redness in his face. Ooh, we got rid of that real quick. All right. And then, of course, I'm going to crop it. And I'm going to show you what I did in a moment. And you decide where you want it to be cropped. And typically, I just give them the image uncropped, so that this way they or the graphic artist can manipulate the image and fit it to wherever they need. So let's look at this image again. Here's before, which is fine. There it is, touched up. Now, yes, I'd go back in, remove some of the blemishes and so on. So before I get into showing you, the edits that we actually created, I mean, they're very simple right here. What I really want to do is show you how we actually, after we planned it, how we actually did the shoot. This little program, it's expensive, but it's really cool. It's a satellite, and it's a 3D studio. So I knew how I wanted to set the lights up. So one light here is going to shine onto the background, making sure there's no shadows of him, and it's going to make the background bright. This right here is my key light, and the key light or the main light is going to illuminate him. Now, because we're shooting this on a white background, when I photograph this here, I'm going to show you the settings in a moment. When he hits it, notice the rim light around the subject. So let's call this guy Carl. All right. So here's Carl. Notice there's a separation, and you see light coming around. That's because the light bounced back and wrapped a little bit around the subject. So what does that mean? Well, if I come over here to this desktop, I'm going to shrink this again. I have to figure out what power of the light and the distance do I want it to be at. Well, I'm going to click on this light, and for all intents and purposes, in this program, it shows it as f-stops on your regular camera and your regular flashes, that's not necessarily the f-stop, all right? But I set this to 8.0, so that's representing f8. So this background is set to f8. If I were to set the camera, at f8, well then that background is going to be perfectly exposed. He is going to be very, very dark, all right? So what I want to do, get back to him, is this right here is my key light. Notice what I did there, f4. So this was f8, that was f4. That represents 2 full stops of light, all right? So that represents 2 full stops of light, meaning here's f4, 5, 6, f8. So f4 to 5, 6 is 1 stop of light. From 5, 6 to f8 is 2 stops of light. The reason I did that is I want that background to be pure white and to throw some light back onto the subject. So if I set my camera to f4, that background is going to be overexposed, and that's what I wanted. So you see how we did that? So the background was f8. The power of that light would produce a proper aperture of f8. The proper use of that front light is going to be f4. That's what I want. I want f4. When I photograph Carl Jr. here, he looks perfect. The background's going to come out pure white, and now I have the setting. You see how once you start to think in those terms, it takes the mystery out of all the lighting. Now, the next step was, well, how far does Carl Jr. have to be from that background? You know, if he's right up towards that background, that light could come all the way around him and give him a haze. So that's where a light meter comes in. So imagine this is my light meter. I go in, I dial in the settings, 1/125th of a second, F8, not F8, ISO, let's say 200, click it, the light flashes, hits that, and it comes back and says, based on those settings, that light is producing F8. Great. So I put Carl near the background, take a meter reading. If the meter reading on the back of Carl comes back at F8, he's too close. Move him back a little bit further. Take another meter reading. Ooh, it's around 7.1. We're getting close. Move him back just a little bit more. Take the reading. Now all of a sudden, he's 5.6. Well, that's great. If I'm shooting F4, boom, the next stop, one stop, is 5.6. That's perfect. Now it's not going to be flat light. He's going to be rimmed beautifully in that backlight coming in. All right? So I hope I didn't lose you on that. So you set the camera to what you want the subject to be, F4. You want the background to be 2 stops, typically 2 stops darker, brighter, in this case. So I put it to F8. Now, if it were the opposite, if I wanted the background to be black, then we switch it around. Then obviously I wouldn't like the background. I would like the subject. But if I wanted that background to be darker, excuse me, then we swap the numbers around. And so we play with it to where we're kissing it with just enough light for a proper exposure and make sure that background is either properly lit, overexposed, or just underexposed. All right? So that's how we did, or that's how I got the lighting set up for this particular shoot. Next week, to make life so much easier, I'm using what's called a high key, and that's by Light. Imagine that as a big, huge 6 foot by 7 foot softbox. That's all it really is. You stick a light in it, aim it at the back of the light, or at the back of the box, which is all black, and the front is all white. Now it illuminates the entire box, 0 shadows, and that light shoots back onto Carl Jr., giving us that beautiful wraparound light. So that's a real simple solution to fix all of this. However, it's like $600, $700, and even though it's small in size, you still have to store it somewhere. So you make a decision. This, you can just go up to any wall that's not black, like a darker wall without any patterns to it, boom, and throw light on it. Now you have a perfect backdrop and you don't have to travel with any of it. So that's how we got the shoot itself. All right, let me do this real quick and make it real quick on this one. Here's the desktop. So we spent a lot of time, which I'm glad we did, on the lighting. And like I said, if we were on location, a lot of this stuff you can see it firsthand. But I love that tool, that software that I had, because it gives you a close representation of what's happening. All right, but real quick, here's the edit. Look at this. Develop, enhance, face, skin, color. Boom. Those right there is the holy grail. Now, I know Carl, Wednesday, Carl, you have your class? Right, Carl? Carl's teaching a special class on Wednesday. So all I'm using, like I said, is 4 simple tools to get this portrait. All right? Well, I hope that was very informative for you. Thanks for joining us, and I'll see you at the next coffee break.